the Liberal government, on the head of it, Justin Trudeau's, lie, and they never fight for the justice. All he did is appeasement with the Iranian regimes, appeasement with the member of the IRGCs they was bringing to these countries. And when we was asking to return in the IRGCs, the people they live on these countries, they never kept any promises.
David Menzies for Rebel News here at the Elgin Mills Cemetery in Richmond Hill, Ontario. And folks, it was 5 years ago today that the Ukrainian airliner PS-572 was shot out of the sky above Tehran by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran. And all 175 people aboard were killed. This included 55 Canadian citizens as well as 30 permanent residents. But of course, whenever mass murder occurs, there are more victims than those who are murdered. I speak of the friends and family members of the deceased. And case in point, this is a vigil for one young lad who lost his life on that flight. His name is Arad Zarei. He was only 17 years old when that plane was shot down, and his father is here at the cemetery to have a vigil marking this grotesque anniversary. And in light of what happened, questions remain, such as, why was it more than 4 years before the Justin Trudeau Liberals declared the IRGC a terrorist organization? For that matter, why was I arrested exactly a year ago today by Fraulein Freeland's security officer, Uncle Fester of the Mounties, just for asking that question?
Ms. Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-nationalism? What? Excuse me. What are you doing?
You're under arrest for assault. Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault.
Who are you?
You're under arrest for assault.
What are you talking about? Police, you're under arrest for assault. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me.
You pushed into me.
I was just scrubbing. I got my credentials here, and you just bumped into me. So excuse
Police, you're under arrest.
me. What is your name in your bag? What is your name in your bag?
You've been told you're under arrest.
Why am I under arrest?
Here's another interesting query. Folks, do you know that in 2021, the Ontario Superior Court of Justice ruled that Iran shot the plane out of the air intentionally, and it was indeed an act of terrorism? The court went on to award 9 families representing 14 victims close to $250 million in compensation. But it was a bittersweet victory because the Supreme Court of Canada rejected attempts by the victims' families to seize Iranian assets here in Canada. Why?
We will freeze assets. We will seize their assets. Canada will never be a safe harbor for RG officials.
In any event, I'm hoping after the vigil is over to speak to the father of Arad, and maybe he can answer some of these questions, or at least give us insight into the fallout from that horrible day some 5 years ago. Well, folks, I'm with Persian-Canadian freedom fighter Salman Seema. And you know, Salman, here we are at this vigil for this beautiful 17-year-old boy that died some 5 years ago. I'm looking at the posters. So many of the people on that airline, PS-752, they were young people. And the copy on the poster says, "Why did you kill us?" Tell me, Salman, why did the Iranian regime shoot down that civilian jetliner to begin with?
Thank you, David, for coming here to cover this great gathering. As we know that CBC and fake news media, they don't like to cover this kind of gathering. Well, one thing, this is not Iranian regime. As you can see that Iranians are peace-loving people. Yes. This is Islamic Republic in Iran, occupy that beautiful land. Yeah. So if you remember in 2020, President Trump served justice to number one terrorist on planet Earth, Qasem Soleimani. Yes. Then Qasem Soleimani went to the hell. And it was a tension between the Islamic Republic in Iran, Iraq, and the U.S. And the Islamic regime attacked the U.S. embassy in Baghdad, if at that day you remember that. And what the weak, brutal, aggressive terrorist regime do? No one shoot the civilian airplane. And the Islamic regime did that, and they killed 55 Canadians.
To me, it's a wanton act of mass murder. It's terrorism. And yet, as you mentioned, 55 Canadians, 30 permanent residents of Canada, many more of different nationalities. Why in the world would the Justin Trudeau Liberals take more than 4 years after this massacre to deem the IRGC what it is, which is a terrorist organization?
Let's come back to 2015, October 2015. Justin Trudeau promised to reopen the embassy of the Islamic regime in Iran. Justin Trudeau, who is Justin Trudeau? The same prime minister that praised the basic dictatorship in China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say, we need to go green as fast as we need to start, investing in solar.
So if it was not your pressure, Merzad pressure, the other friends' pressure, Persian communities' pressure, still IRGC was not listed. And unfortunately, I can say that, yes, IRGC is listed as an FTO, but you don't see any action from CSIS or RCMP going after IRGC commanders. And it is just, that some symbolic action for liberals to escape from the pressure.
It's baffling to me, Salman. And Salman, tell me, tomorrow at the Richmond Hill Performing Arts Center, there will be another vigil. I'm kind of having PTSD about that, given what happened to me a year ago when I was arrested simply for asking Chrystia Freeland, why isn't the IRGC a terrorist organization? And lo and behold, months later, it was declared such. But can you tell me about who's organizing that vigil tomorrow? Because I understand there are very senior, prominent liberals that are showing up. Can you tell me who's who in the zoo?
So there are several different opinions in Iranian Canadian community as well, and the organizer of tomorrow events is a flight association, Flight PS 752 association. Okay. They are a number of the families, and they have a more liberal friendly approach than Merzad, than Shahin, the other family that you can see here. They don't sue the regime in Supreme Court of the Ontario. They don't go after RCMP because RCMP refused to open the criminal investigation. And they are very friendly with Justin Trudeau.
But, I get it. A lot of people are diehard supporters of whatever political party. But Salman, surely, if you are a friend or a family member of somebody who died on that flight, and most of these people were very young, doesn't that transcend political branding? Doesn't that make you want to have justice as opposed to supporting a political party because you've always supported that political party?
Yeah. For me personally, freedom always comes first. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you know that you interview me several times. Yeah. I understand the bipartisan approach. I don't say that we should make justice as a political game. But bipartisan approach, it doesn't mean that we should praise liberals or we should praise conservative, which means that our agenda today is that asking justice for 55 Canadians who were killed in intentional act of terror. Justin Trudeau never mentioned that it is an intentional act of terror. Negligent, human's error or whatever. They don't. It was an intentional act of terror. 3 missiles shot down in that airplane. And bipartisan approach, which means that you should hold Trudeau accountable, you should hold RCMP accountable, you should hold liberals accountable, conservative accountable, the regime in Iran accountable. You know that, which means that you should go for justice. Whoever helps you, say welcome. Whoever doesn't help you, hold them accountable, shame them, name them.
I think it is too soon to be drawing conclusions or assigning blame or responsibility in whatever proportions. Right now, our focus is on supporting the families that are grieving right across the country.
No blame, not even for Iran.
And 4 years, it takes 4 years for Justin Trudeau to list IRGC, and you know that it was uprising from Iran. Pierre Poilievre, Melissa Landsman did a great job. You raised the question from Chrystia Freeland. We hold several rallies, and it was a huge campaign against IRGC. And after that, Justin Trudeau, just for escaping from the pressure, and they list IRGC just before summer time in the parliament, before summer break.
So once again, the Trudeau Liberals finally doing the right thing, but for all the wrong reasons. One last question, Solomon. If you believe the polls, and I certainly do, we're looking at a Pierre Poilievre Conservative majority government sometime this year. Do you think that the Poilievre Conservatives will pick up on these investigations, do whatever they can to seek justice for the Canadian families of that airline?
So personally, I talked with Pierre, and I have talked several times with Melissa Landsman, deputy leader of Conservative Party. I am more hopeful in Conservative Party, but it doesn't mean that we should trust to the politician. Your viewers see that never trust to the politician, doesn't matter left or right. We see that what happened in the UK. Okay, don't trust to the politician. Do your advocacy, but keep the pressure. And sometimes politician has some limitation, okay? And as a fighter, as a civil society, we need to, and as a journalist, we need to do our job. They need to do their job. I am hopeful that in a broad perspective, especially by the change in the U.S., we can see more pressure against regime.
Well, folks, I'm with Mirzad Zarei. He is the father of Arad, only 17 years old, 5 years ago this day, when that Ukrainian airliner was shot out of the sky by the IRGC. First of all, sir, my condolences to the loss of your beautiful boy. That is just way too young to go. And I'm just wondering, in the fallout of this horrible act of terrorism, why did it take more than 4 years for the Justin Trudeau Liberals to recognize the IRGC as a terrorist group?
First of all, thanks for you to come in. The second, 5 years is gone since this mass murdering, this terrorist act is gone. I remember the second day I had a meeting with Justin Trudeau. On the second day, he's promised he's going to fight for the justice. After that, I had maybe 6 more meetings with Justin Trudeau and many more with the different foreign ministers. And what I understand for last 5 years, all of them, they've been lie and lie and lie. None of the promises they've been saying, obviously they never keep the promise and they never deliver the promise they was doing. I remember when we was fighting to put the IRGCs on the list, I went to his office on the Ottawa, and he was shaking to list in the IRGCs on the list of the terrorist act. Then when he's coming to the times to put the list, he's coming and he's did 10,000, God knows whoever number was. This is the example, the Liberal government, on the head of it, Justin Trudeau's, lie, and they never fight for the justice. All he did is appeasement with the Iranian regimes, appeasement with the member of the IRGCs they was bringing to these countries. And when we was asking to return in the IRGCs, the people they live on these countries, they never kept any promises. Behind of the door, behind of the I mean, the public, they was promising,
Yes.
and none of them been kept.
But, sir, if I may ask, why? I mean, there were 55 Canadians and 30 permanent residents of Canada that were massacred on that day, as well as everybody else on that aircraft. We know that the Iranian regime is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, aside from the IRG, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. Why would a Canadian government, why would a Western democracy want to appease a country that is so vested in terrorism?
I'm going to tell you, from day one, I see the lie on the eyes of the Justin Trudeau. That's why I did not trust him. What I did, I opened the court case on the Supreme Court of the Ontario. I get the judgment, terrorist act of the Iranian regime, judgment on the Zarei versus Iran. The government of the Canada's, I remember when I had holding the Trudeau's on the Richmond Hills on the street, I asked him why he's not opened the criminal investigation in Canada's. You know what he said? He said the crime is happened in Ukraine. This is the breach of law. What is writing on the law, every Canadian being killed any place on this world, the RCMPs must open the criminal investigation. The Canadian government, I mean, the liberal Canadian government, they must be held accountable for not opening the criminal investigation for 55 Canadian.
100%. And the court case you speak of, I believe that was the Ontario court judgment for $250 million for 9 families representing 14 victims. And yet the Supreme Court of Canada later would not enforce the judgment. They would not allow the seizure of Iranian assets. Why would the Supreme Court go that route?
Before we say, the first day when we opened the court case, we did not ask for the monies. What we asking, the member of the Iranian regime, from head of the regimes, Ali Khamenei, to the IRGC commanders, from Hajizadeh, Salamis, X and X. These people, they are responsible for the mass murdering, as I said, is a terrorist act for the killing my son and 155 more. So this is what we're asking on the first day when we open. If the Canadian governments not forcing, the Canadian court, this is the breach of the law. We remember maybe a few months ago, Justin Trudeau was coming and he said, you know what? Here we are country of rule of law, and we are standing with the court for the Prime Minister of the Israel's regarding about the judgment of the whatever. If he's right, why he's not supporting the court case here in Canada?
That's a brilliant point. It is a double standard, isn't it?
It's 100%.
Yeah.
What we want, up to now, what we see live from the Canadian government. What I hope on the new government, what is coming on the power, we want to standing for the victim families and not lying to the families and standing for the families and deliver the justice for the families. The first of all, what we want on the new year and the new government, open the criminal investigations for the PS752. Return or dispel the IRGC's members. Here in Canada, I believe 700, 800, whatever number is, they have to kick out from these countries. This is what we want. And open the criminal case on the ICC, on the Law's court. This is the 3 things is left to regarding about the justice for the PS752, the new government or whoever's coming on the power, they have to do.
It's astonishing that more than 700 members of the IRGC or people who have ties to the IRGC are actually living in our country, sir. It's amazing. Full disclosure, for 26 years, I've lived right here in Richmond Hill. Big Persian minority, I think it's as high as 14%. I've had great experiences with everybody in the Persian community except one, and that would be the Liberal MP for Richmond Hill South, Majid Johari, who supports the Iranian regime. Most of the Persians I've met in Richmond Hill were fleeing the regime to start their lives anew. Can you explain why somebody like that gets elected?
You know, when we see the people, obviously the Iranian, basically the Persian Canadian communities, they are seeing what is going on. And when we see the some people like Joe Harris or whatever, we know what he's doing. Basically, we don't forget what he did to us, what he did to our communities. And they are accountable. As a liberal member, they did nothing, especially for PS 752. Myself, as a victim families, a father of the only sons, I'm not forgetting what they did.
Well, sir, let us all hope for regime change in Iran one day. I'm sure it's going to come. We're going to have regime change in Canada sometime this year, I'm sure. In the meantime, tell me about Arad. What was your son like? Can you give us a character sketch of what he liked, what he aspired to be?
My son's born on the UK's. We have dual nationality from UK's and Canadian. He was like every, other young boys. He liked, the soccer. He liked the basketballs. He liked the, learning and teaching. That was he was going to university for his, future career. But unfortunately, the IRGCs, take him from me. Now, I tell you, on the first day, I was father of Arad. Now, we're fighting not only of Arad. I see all these young boys, they've been killed by Iranian regime. I see them as my families. And we fight for all of them until the Iranian regimes go to hell. That's what we want.
Folks, I don't see any of the mainstream media covering this very important event, at least in my eyes. But that's the thing. I know you love it when Rebel News brings you the other side of the story. Please, if you can, go to rebelfieldreports.com. That's rebelfieldreports.com. And if you're able to, kindly make a donation, because unlike Justin Trudeau's MSM trained SEALs, we do not receive a single nickel from the federal government, nor would we take it if offered. Again, please go to rebelfieldreports.com.